and actually we're starting a bit early. We were hoping to wait for our moderator, but then I decided it's probably easier to moderate than talk. I'll do a bit of both. Let me first start by introducing our panelists. If you could just say a couple of words on what you do so that, people would know the context of who's talking and why are they saying such things. So Lauren, shall we start? Ladies first.
There's a mic over there.
Hello. What was I supposed to say again?
What do you do, basically?
Right, okay. So I gave a talk this morning. I don't know how many of you were in the room for that, but in a nutshell, I am a serial entrepreneur. I've started 3 different businesses, ranging from a vineyard and winery that I sold, that I started when I was 19, to a marketing company, and then an early stage venture firm by the name of Gen Y Capital Partners that I started with some colleagues of mine who I was co-investing with. Our investment thesis and objective was to be Gen Y entrepreneurs who were investing in other Gen Y entrepreneurs, so other young entrepreneurs, with the investment thesis that as successful entrepreneurs ourselves, we are hyper-connected to other young entrepreneurs, which means that we are hyper-connected to top-tier deal flow at the very earliest stage possible. So another successful entrepreneur who's starting another company will pick up the phone and say, hey, let's grab coffee with me before they're going to go into an early stage proper VC's office. I was angel investing before that with my same colleagues who have now become my business partners. And those people who invested in our fund, so our limited partners, were primarily other very successful young entrepreneurs who believed in our investment focus and had the same passion and wanted to have similar portfolios, but looked at investing in our fund as a way to syndicate their overall approach to investing, because it's hard over time to continue to do the due diligence on all those deals. So it's, you can do 1, 2, 3, you can even do 5 or 10 on your own, but over time, you get bombarded with opportunity, and it's really hard to kind of dig through the noise and the clutter to find the diamonds in the rough. More recently, I also have a best-selling business book that I wrote for women called The Path Redefined, Getting to the Top on Your Own Terms. And then more recently, I have a television show now in the United States that's on a major network called Oxygen, which is part of the NBC Universal Comcast family. It's called Quit Your Day Job. It comes on every Friday at 7 o'clock. And it is, essentially a Shark Tank meets The Prophet meets The Apprentice for young entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs. My co-stars are Randy Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg's sister who ran marketing at Facebook for 5 years, a guy named Ido Leffler who has a natural skincare company called Yes to Carrots, and a Canadian entrepreneur named Sarah Pravet. So all in all, I'm a woman, I'm an investor, advisor, a mom, and an entrepreneur.
Can we watch your program online?
So the TV show is called Quit Your Day Job. You can go to, if you Google Quit Your Day Job and Oxygen, which is the network, or if you just Google Quit Your Day Job TV show or Quit Your Day Job Lauren or whatever, you'll find it. And you should be able to see some of the clips online. Some of them are unfortunately restricted for geographical reasons. Yeah, it's really annoying, unfortunately. But you can also get it in iTunes. I had sent the links to Tarek, and I think he had some difficulty in seeing them, but I know that in some other countries you can. So try it in iTunes as well.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I'm also I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started out with an agency that's still going. Started in like 2010, a digital agency, and then I started getting involved in more things. So I'm a partner in a bus transport company called Tawsila. We build a platform that connects buses to schools, and also we started a Facebook video analytics platform called Mintrix, which we just finished a round raising for it. And also we started Juice Labs, which is a tech accelerator. We invest in media, in tech startups in the media space, as well as a content production house called The Planet Production, which is an offshoot of the agency, and we have 2 or 3 of our own web shows which we distribute. So it's best كده.
Okay. I'm a lawyer, basically, so I'm a practicing lawyer, but at the same time, for the past 10 years, I've been interested in angel investing. I've invested in a company. I made friends with the entrepreneurs, and then I thought it's a good idea. They started introducing more people, so I started making more investments, and now I'm up just about 12 investments. Mostly in Egypt, but also one in Canada with Egyptians, and looking at something also in London now, also with Egyptians. I tend to invest in stuff that has technology, basically potential, and I just love it working with entrepreneurs, helping them on different things. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Loay. So, I mean, moving on to. So all of you basically invest in companies. You do it personally, not through a fund.
Yes, myself, I do it personally, yes.
So, I mean, what are you looking for typically in an investment? We'll talk about two sides, the nature of the business and the entrepreneur himself. So what are you usually looking for? Because I think that is one of the things that a lot of the younger entrepreneurs are sometimes obsessing with the product itself and the technology, as opposed to the bigger picture. So what is it that you look for?
Well, actually, what I'm looking for basically is more the person and then the idea. So the person we're looking for, the smarts, someone whose really eyes is shiny, or hers. So someone who's really able to do things and evolve them and pivot with them and deal with people at different stages of the company and financing, small to big. And with that, after the smarts, I'm looking also for ethical integrity, because there would be so many opportunities that they can screw the company or do something that is right or wrong. And at the end of the day, it depends on where you've grown up and what you've done, or something that you can be very smart. And the most smart of them is probably the ones that, I mean, the biggest schemes globally and shenanigans have come out of people who are super smart. So if you don't have both the smarts and the ethical fabric, I think this is a non-starter for me. So when you have both, then we look into the idea and then the commitment. And of course, hopefully to me is also global exposure. Where is it that you want to, how do you see things locally and globally? I think it's a globalized world. You cannot just do with something that's small, doesn't scale.
So basically, the important things to you are smart, ethics and integrity, and then the idea,
yes,
and then the global
yes,
potential
yes,
for expansion.
Yes.
Lovely. Lauren? You've been looking at, you just mentioned you've been looking at tons and tons of companies over the years. So, I mean,
I have looked at a lot of different businesses. I think there's a few different schools of thought on this, and I tend to be the investor who really trusts my intuition, and I always refer to logic. So, we say in the US, you bet the jockey, not the horse, right? So think of like a horse in a race, and you're betting that jockey. I'm betting on the talent of that person who's controlling the horse, who's controlling the company. And oftentimes, because I'm investing at really early stage, the company can pivot. Like you can invest in something that does one thing, and more often than not, although it's happening less and less frequently, but more often than not, you see that company evolve into something completely different. And I have to be able to trust the entrepreneur that I'm backing, that they're going to be able to evolve, adapt, both to the market and to feedback from myself and other investors and advisors. And so, I look for, obviously, intelligence. I look for grit. I look for resilience. I look for someone who is poised, because oftentimes when you're looking at young entrepreneurs, sometimes the smartest ones are the stupidest ones, I hate to tell you. Sometimes the most brilliant people are the most socially awkward. Like, I've invested in companies where like the engineer is a complete rock star, but he's just a total idiot. Like I wouldn't want him, going out to a fundraising meeting. This has happened to you, I'm sure, right? Okay. And you're like, oh God, no, we got to rein you in. We got to control you, or, so I need to know that you have a good team around you. and that you are poised enough to be able to take on the role of entrepreneurship. So just because you're smart, just because you have a great idea, unfortunately that's not enough, because at the end of the day it always comes down to execution. And I will say that there's a company it used to be called Rap Genius, but now it's called Genius. Are you guys familiar with this company? No? Just one person?
Something knows.
So Rap Genius started as essentially like an online Wikipedia for rap music, for rap lyrics, okay? And it wasn't started by anybody who was ingrained in the hip hop culture. So read between the lines. It was not started by black people. And I've had so many entrepreneurs over the years say to me, I had that idea, I should have made a Rap Genius, like I knew all that stuff. But they didn't. They didn't come up with the company. They're not the ones who raised $40, $60 million at this point now to be behind this company. And now they're pivoting a little bit. They're now called Genius, and they're working with Spotify to basically like decode all sorts of music, not just rap music, but it started as decoding rap lyrics for people, so like Wikipedia for rap music. And I would always, especially when the conversation of minorities in technology became more popular in the last few years, so we've had more and more like conferences around minorities in tech and blacks in tech and things of that nature, the question always came up, like, why wasn't it me? Well, did you have the idea? Yeah, but you know what? How many people have those sorts of ideas? Were you ready to pull the trigger and create a strategy and go raise capital and make a team and have an organizational chart? No. Were you ready to execute? No. But most importantly, you have to tell your investors why you will win. And if you don't have that clear value proposition of why you will win, based on team, based on market opportunity, based on white space, based on shrinking the market, leveraging something, who's going to invest in you? So those are the things that I tend to look for.
Intuition, first of all, it's intuition. How you feel about the entrepreneur, and it's the jockey more than the horse at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm investing in the people. And I will say, we're in this, and it's funny because I was speaking at another conference right before this in Florida, in Miami, and this happens all the time in everywhere I go. Oh, I'm creating the Uber for, we're going to be the Netflix for, yeah, everybody wants to be the Uber for something. Like, that's not a value prop. I'm really sorry. You telling me you're going to be the Netflix of this industry is not a value proposition either. And companies that think they have no competition are scary, right? If you don't have a slide that says, A, competition, and B, the best slides have potential exit strategies. And I just finished talking about this extensively in Florida, No investor wants to invest in a lifestyle business. So there's a difference in creating an asset and creating, a business. And a business can just be something that gives you constant cash flow and passive cash flow to be able to have a lifestyle. But building a true company is being able to build an asset and create value in something that can be valuable whether you run it or not. So those are the things that I tend to look for.
Thanks, Lauren. Tarek.
Yeah,
Same question. I mean, how do you decide on an investment?
Okay, so I think to not repeat what everyone said, because I agree with it as well, is the main thing is an entrepreneur. So basically, obviously there's a lot of ideas out there, but you have to believe the person in front of you or the team in front of you can actually execute it. So I think the entrepreneur is very important. And I think if I were to give advice to kind of flip it around a little bit, if people here have startups and they're looking for investments, I think networking is increasingly is really important, because when you go sit with the investor and the investor has heard of you before, seen you around before, or had a cup of coffee with you before, and kind of knows what you've been doing in maybe your previous company and your previous job, and knows that you've been executing well, it's much more likely to make the investment go quicker, and actually not necessarily, a lot of times, sometimes people spend a lot of time on the pitch deck and so on and so forth, and it's very, very important, but what maybe people that haven't raised before should know is that a lot of investments happen without even looking at the pitch deck, if you know the entrepreneur and trust the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur has a good track record. So I think that's very important as well.
I'm coming to you with a plan then if you don't look at decks.
Well, if I know you, I don't know you, so I'm going to look at the deck.
I still look at their deck.
No, you look at the deck, but I mean, you don't really, if if you trust the person in front of you, especially as we're in early stage, so if you trust the person in front of you, you know the business plan, that's fine, but it's not necessarily that you know they're going to pivot and the business plan isn't where it's going to be maybe a couple of years from now. So basically, you trust they'll evolve properly, yeah.
Let me tell you, I think some of the stuff you talked about is, I mean, many people know that the entrepreneur is important, the intelligence. I mean, if you ask anyone, he'll tell you, yeah, I need to invest in a bright entrepreneur. The dilemma some people have is, I come from a corporate background. I worked for IBM, Aramex, Vodafone, and when you work with such a big company, we do what's called competency-based interviewing. So when we're looking at an executive to hire one of our top management, you know, in Vodafone, for example, there are 9 competencies that you're looking for, and you test for them. You know all the questions, how do you go about testing for this, looking at past experience, and so on and so forth. Some of the stuff, especially what you said, Loay and Lauren, is I think, very difficult to test for. I mean, you can follow your intuition, you can follow your, I mean, just how you think of the entrepreneur, but how do you really maximize the opportunity on trying to get it right? Is there a way? I mean, is there a way? You spend time
I think
questioning. How do you do it?
You spend time, you get a little bit more personable, you get over the phone and ask people who've known them, or if you've known them for years, that helps. So mostly you can invest with people that you've known. You meet a lot of people, and people change plans, leave their careers at companies and start their own companies. I think this is where we find the best for people. So I mean, as a lawyer, many of my friends, when they leave their corporate jobs at Vodafone and P&G and all of those other big names, they want to have a change of career, a little bit of a change of heart. They want to have a confident, some confident discussion with a lawyer to see their potential. And that's the point where actually many have invited me to invest, or I have decided that I should be investing with them, so that after they have done the 10, 12 years of the corporates, then I have a shot at it. So those are people that I have known also from school days, or maybe a few years later, but basically 7, 8 years into something. But if not, and most of us are doing angel investing, and angel investing tends to be also you invest in the vicinity of where you are. I mean, within driving distance, but you can get over the phone and also validate with people, just as you do a check on someone. It's not the nicest, especially for the culture here, but I mean, it does help. And of course, referrals, when you get referrals from good people. And it actually works both ways, because sometimes even when we work with investee companies and we want to refer them to someone later, we want to make sure that we are referring to. So for instance, I referred at least a couple of the startups that I've been involved with to Saudi investors to look at them. And you know, the Saudis, they have this whole idea of relationship building and trust and stuff like this. So you don't want to refer people who would not make the impression as well. So
It's funny you're saying about people who've worked in companies for years, because as much as I think that this is a huge opportunity for the Egyptian entrepreneurial scene, we've had a lot of discussion about the quality of education over the past 2 days in Egypt, and are the graduates with the kind of education they're getting, with the exception of a couple of schools, are they tech savvy enough? Are they well educated enough? Are they ready for starting their companies? And I always thought that people who worked for a while in a big corporate and got the exposure of managing sophisticated products, sometimes this is helpful. But let me also share with you an idea that is also on my mind, that some of these guys, they try the entrepreneurship world for a while, but the minute they get the job offer, because some of them are really the brighter ones, a job offer to go back to corporate life, this is where the real test becomes. I mean, because the salaries can be very, very attractive, and they're not used to this kind of bootstrapping and really working under financial pressure as such. Because when you work in a multinational, you're usually living in a big corporate with a lot of perks and a nice salary and so on and so on. So I mean, this is one thing also that I have to ask you for. I mean, when you deal with such people, you're always running the risk. I personally, Career.com is a company that I invested in with a fantastic vision and a fantastic concept. But the guy was a very senior HR executive in one of the biggest multinational companies in the region. And guess what? 6 months later, he got this job offer that he simply could not refuse. So he just walked out.
It could happen.
So as a lawyer, tell me what to do about that.
I'm just...
Maybe this is one of the things you need to teach me how to do. I mean,
No,
it's the commitment part.
actually, as a lawyer, I don't tend to do any stuff that's out of... I just tend to do like everybody else at the beginning. No, we don't do this stuff later, because what you get out of overreaching would inhibit the company's opportunities in the future, actually, many times. I mean, if you decide to really go over or to over-lawyer things and get more legalistic at the beginning of the company, most of the venture capitals would not look at it because they don't want something complicated. But the point is, many times people who are into corporate world, of course, you get them from corporate and outside of corporate, but the ones who are in corporate who have a chance or probably a probability at entrepreneurship, they probably are not sitting in the corporate very comforted, and probably they've been trying things over the years, or they have been involved with other things that are more also social and stuff like this. So if you know them and you know that this is like a point where they are making the shift, I think this is where it could be wise to. But if they have if they have talked about it forever and they keep changing heart even without trying, then you know that it's almost a non-starter. But at the end of the day, it's a chance, and you try to risk mitigate.
So looking for the best fits in the corporate world.
I'll just say that entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And it's not for someone who needs the predictable life. And there's nothing wrong with wanting the predictable life. And not all of the responsibility. I meet people all the time who are like, hey, Lauren, hats off to you. I couldn't do it. I like the fact that I go to work at 9 or 10. I like the fact that every Friday or every other Friday I get my paycheck. I like the fact that it's 6 o'clock, even if, as we say, crap hits the fan. Do you have an equivalent saying here?
Shit hits the...
Well, you say it. I'm not going to say it. You say it. So, even if what? Even if...
Shit hits the fan.
6 o'clock, 6:30, you're like, that email, I'm just going to hold it and go home. There's nothing wrong with being that person. And, and amazing entrepreneurs need those people who really thrive on that kind of consistency and that kind of predictability. But entrepreneurship is a hustle, it's a struggle, but it's also a luxury, right? Me, personally, at 31 years old, I'm also a single mom to 2 kids. I always say when people look at me and they're like, oh my God, have you done all this in your life? I know for sure I could have never done it in corporate America. I could never be where I am now in a traditional model. Because I'm able to accelerate my career, I'm able to create my own opportunities, and in a lot of ways, create my own success based on how hard I decide to work. I get to row my own canoe, as we say. So
it's freedom.
It is a lot of freedom, but it's also a lot of work. And so there are some people, I've never had a consistent income. Before doing any of this, I was a model. So, and I started modeling when I was 6 until I was 22. So I was accustomed to one big check, no check for 2 weeks, one big check, no check for 3 months, and you have to learn how to roll with the punches. If you need your check every week and you want benefits and you're that person who's like, hey, where's the coffee room? Maybe being an entrepreneur is not for you.
Yeah, if I'll just make the pitch to the couple of people that are here that are still in university on being entrepreneurs versus being employed. So basically, here's.
Oh, can I just say one thing?
Things about being employed.
Can I just say
Honestly, I am employed.
Before you say that, I just want to say one super quick thing before he says whatever valuable information he wants to share. I will say, take your biggest risks while you're young.
Yeah.
So if you think you want to be an entrepreneur and you're coming out of school, this is your time to do it. Take all of your risk now, not later.
Yeah, definitely agreed. So I think we're in the same age range. So basically, when I was in my, it's 18, 19, trying to be an entrepreneur, I had a bunch of stupid ideas that all went nowhere. But But if you fast forward now, I'm in my early 30s, and if you look at people that are in their, I sit with my friends that are in their early 30s, they're working in big corporations, maybe even in the Emirates or stuff like that, and you realize that even the stability that supposedly employment brings is a lot of it is an illusion. So you have lots of these big corporations that then decide, no matter how well you do your job, to lay off like all these different people because they're cost cutting or because all these different things are going on now in the Gulf with the whole petrol thing. The price is going down, so lots of people are losing revenue. They're cutting costs, and then they cut people, and then they're stuck in Dubai. You have to find a job in a month, or else you can come back to here, which is awesome, obviously. And so and so basically now I'm in a stage, if you look at it, like entrepreneurship versus people that kind of got a job, is the financial kind of reward is similar. And I get to go to work in shorts every day, and no, I can lay myself off, but no one's gonna lay me off. So yeah, and definitely, if you try to take the risk when you're 35 or 36, it's much more difficult than taking a risk when you're 18 or 19 or in your early 20s. So.
Not when you're 53, huh?
No, but
I'll get to questions because I think I just wanted to find out in the room, any investors around here in the room? Quite. But mostly, I mean, people on the entrepreneurial side, huh? Yeah. Right. Because I have only one question related to the testing as well, because we didn't quite finish that in terms of the testing, huh? Anything you'd like to add, Tarek? Because you didn't say that.
Yeah, the whole testing thing. So when we first started the accelerator, obviously we didn't know anything about investing. So we sat with a lot of people that knew stuff about investing, like Tarek, Fahim, Nisbat, and Yaktira, and they gave us all this insight. And then we built this whole model of how to test to مش عارف إيه وبتاع. And then we made our first investment based on this very elaborate model that took us around 6 months to build, with a lot of color codes, a lot of different things, and it absolutely bombed. And it was an awful experience, to be very honest with you. And so the investment after that, I just made it based on intuition, and it's working actually out a lot better than than the whole color coding one.
And صراحة, I think wearing the angel, although I'm not a very successful angel investor, but I think that for Egypt it is hard work. يا جماعة I love the idea of the freedom. I love the idea of the cool looks and the shorts and the مش beats. انت حاطط ايه؟
دي JBL.
بس في التانيين بيحطوا beats لازم، وبرضه you know the bag that has to be very cool طلع منها حاجات، ودلوقتي solar panels وحاجات كده. بس الصراحة what we really need is hard work in this country. I think it's not the looks, it's the hard work, the resilience, the discipline. Huh? People here would be great examples. يعني the panel today is a great example of very hardworking people. يعني in كان Loay or Tarek, I know very, very well both of them, and I see the amount of effort they put day in, day out into their work. Lawrence just told amazing stories about how she's working since her teens, built companies, flipped companies, and now she's doing her show. I mean, this is real hard work. This is the number one, I think, trait that we need in this country. Second is, and I always give the example of Haytham Abdel Fadil. Anybody in the room knows Haytham?
Oh, I know.
Haytham is يا جماعة خريج ثانوي صنايع كهرباء from Port-Said. He was in high school, and he's one of our best system engineers in this country, who studied at Stanford Artificial Intelligence, top of his class, self-learned. He learned online. This is a lot of hard work as well. If I know a guy like Haytham and he wants an investment, I'll do all I can to help invest with him. The resilience he demonstrates every day, I mean, in what he does, and the amount of versatility. When he hits the wall, how he pivots half Kenjan, and how he's done. I mean, great example of a great entrepreneur that you would invest in him at any minute. And one day, somebody I know said, investing in an entrepreneur is like picking a husband for your daughter. I said, most people I know who've done that have done a horrible job, you know. You don't pick a husband for your daughter. I mean, you just have to see what she wants and follow that. But I mean, because it doesn't really work all the time, you know. I think it's hard work. I think it's the resilience. I think it's the ability to keep going in tough times. Young people in this country have seen some of the toughest time over the past 5 years, and some of them are doing a great job. So, I mean, we should learn from these examples. Anything? Yes.
I have a couple of things when it comes to testing as well. One is, before testing, actually, I was just confirming, Tarek, for the young ones, sometimes they put together teams and then they just go bust quickly because of diverging things. They get offers in companies, so it's not the mid-career; it's also the beginning of career. So they come out of university, they have a lot of interest and excitement, and then they put together the team. Someone gets engaged and he needs to get married, so basically he goes for a corporate career, and the other one gets an offer in the Gulf, and then the whole team is dissolved. So if you get excited about them quickly, that means that you get busted as well with them. So basically, you need to extend the period where there's a bit of testing, and also the other side of that is that you also try to give them some small tasks or small things. Test to make sure that they are willing to stay in the game and to put some time and effort and also hopefully some expense. And if you do this not for years but for a few months, maybe 3 to 6 months, every time they put something, you put something in return. Maybe that would help to validate and also to yes. And we've done this with someone, for instance, in Port Said, who's designed some beds that medical beds that treat قرح بقى bed sores, and it's quite funny because I mean he's not qualified in this, but he liked that his mother has had this bed sores and they have suffered from it, and for some reason he read in the Quran that maybe when they were flipping the guys who slept 309 years, then they woke up, they still walked. So something preserved the spirit and something preserved the blood circulation. So anyways, and stuff like this. So we've been working, for instance, with him for 6 to 8 months, and then we decided not to invest in him because his plan has always been come give me money along with. And then when he put the team, it turned out that the team were also looking for opportunity but anyways, I mean we did it some sort of almost philanthropy investing. So we could give out some few thousand Egyptian pounds to make up our mind whether it's going to go or not. So maybe such tricks, because I mean if investees have tricks, investors could also have their own tricks, and then it becomes a tricky game.
Very useful advice. Anybody from the floor who invests would like to add something to what would... Yes, please.
So I would like to... definitely you reached the state after you made a couple of bad investments.
What?
You reached the state of good investments after you made a couple of bad investments.
ممكن تسألني أنا بدي I've made a series of bad investments. You can ask me.
So what did you learn and what can you tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to stay away from arrogant entrepreneurs because they never listen. They never listen to my advice or other people's advice. They think they know everything. Those entrepreneurs can be really scary. And those tend to be the entrepreneurs who feel that they've created a company to solve a problem that they had. Most often, that's a recurring theme that I see. So a lot of the times if I meet an entrepreneur who's like, hey, I started this company, and if the reason is because I couldn't find something or because it didn't exist for me, I tend, not always, but I tend to stay away from those sort of entrepreneurs in general. But I think there's no way to de-risk entrepreneurship, and there's no way to de-risk investing in entrepreneurs. And if you speak to any really good investor, they will tell you that venture funding and being a venture capitalist or an early stage investor is meant to be a barbell. You're going to have deals where you lose money, you're going to have deals where you break even, and you're going to have deals where you make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x. That's your complete outlier. So I try not to look at each individual deal. Yes, it's important. Yes, you need to support those deals, but I try to look at the portfolio on a whole.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I know.
ممكن ممكن حد من الاشرز ممكن يتابع الميكروفون ده؟
في الحقيقة أنا interested جدا to start with what Lauren said about taking risk. It's very important to taking risk and start to be entrepreneur, but also it's very important to know how to deal with different risk in organization and to know about the risk management. And that's mean to get information about how to do business and how to involve in management and leadership and making integrations between different functions in your organization. Otherwise, you will lose your money. Of course, you will learn from failure, but it's better to before starting to get more information about how to build a successful business model and how to integrate actually between and utilize different resources between power, relations, technical knowledge, and all of these things. So being entrepreneur, seizing opportunity and seeing the opportunity and also utilize the resources, assess the critical successful factors that will lead to enhancing the organizational performance, okay? And don't give up actually, because you will face a fast-moving, changing and challenging environment. So you need to each time find solutions for different situations that you face. And it is not a comfortable area actually to be entrepreneurship. So no. So don't burn yourself also. And because it may be one of the most critical failure, to burn yourself. Actually, you should keep a balance between relations, social relation, and different aspects of your life. So work, because it's just being entrepreneurship now it's our economy will not develop unless hard work, as Mr. Ziad said. So thank you very much.
Is it possible?
Yeah, I think your statement is very accurate. I think going back to, he's gone now. Anyway, going back to, you moved. You got a better seat.
That's the nature of an entrepreneur.
Hey! Come get the better seat in the house when the better seat's available. You're genius. Okay. But I think just going back to your question and piggybacking on your statement, the only way to attempt to, and again, you can't de-risk, but you can certainly attempt to maximize and leverage the value that you do have in a company that you're invested in, is to then invest in companies where you know that your expertise can add value. I started doing that. I still do invest in some companies where I know it's not my area of expertise. Like strategically, I can add value. Yes, of course, I'm smart. I can be a voice of reason. I can add value in very macro levels, so like bird's eye view levels. But I think that if you're concerned about that kind of risk, the only way you can try to really protect your investment is to invest in something where your direct expertise, experience, or network can actually move the needle in that company. So there are times when I invest in a company and I'm like, yep, I know 10 people who own 10 amazing companies that would immediately start buying this product. Case in point, there's a product right now that I've invested in actually on our TV show, but we've invested obviously in real life, so I still want to see my money grow. and it's a hair care product, and I have a friend that has a big hair care business online in the States, and he's going to be taking like 10,000 units of this product, right? So I know that I can get the product in the door. There's still work to do to keep it selling, but I know that we can capitalize on that from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective. We can make revenue. We can use that to get other retailers. So if that's a concern, then focus on areas where your experience, expertise, and network will move the needle or the bottom line in that company.
Yeah, a couple of questions to Lauren and Tarek. Sorry, I'm clumsy as usual. And then a comment from Loay. You say you don't do arrogant entrepreneurs. How do you define an arrogant entrepreneur from a persistent one? And then how far you should go with a persistent? I mean, you hit it and then it doesn't go. You hit it, doesn't go. I mean, how far would you actually swim the whole mile? And then Loay, you find a persistent entrepreneur. When do you send him the SMA? SMA is save my ass letter. That means I'm not really going to back you up legally in any of your ventures. Thank you.
I'll just answer quickly and give it to Lauren. So I think the difference between how you can tell.
The same thing. I was so curious. Go ahead.
Okay,
I
see.
have one word, but I want to see if it's one word.
Okay, so I think persistence and arrogance, how you can tell the difference is if the person listens. So I consider myself someone that's somewhat persistent. But Ziad, who I sit and smoke shisha with a lot, if he's going to come and tell me, Tarek, hey, I downloaded your new app, but I saw this and this and this and that, and he gives me some comments. I'm persistent, but I'm definitely going to listen to everything he says. I'm going to write it down. Then I'm going to think about it when after I leave. So for me, I think that's an easy way to kind of tell.
You're going to think about it.
I'm going to at least think about it.
Please don't do it then.
So my one word, I can expand on this, but the one word is humility. And is there a translation of that that's more, okay. Okay. And I think that's apparent in the way that you, as an entrepreneur, you're going to take pictures now? Hold on. I got to sit up straight because that hunched over picture does not look cute.
Special. I'm good. I like the profile.
I'm just joking. I'm joking. But, I think humility, I know. And so when you have an entrepreneur, first of all, the act of being persistent is to do something repeatedly without taking it personally, right? So a persistent entrepreneur, someone who doesn't mind calling me or emailing me and following up 5 or 10 times, and it is equally nice, if not becomes nicer on every additional attempt. Hi, it's so great to meet you. I'm following up. Hi, just circling back here anytime you have. Hey, just checking in again. That's persistent. Arrogant is, how come you haven't written me back? Like, big difference. My favorite one, don't you know who I am? Do you think I care? I mean, that's my answer. If I cared, I'd be chasing you. I don't know, but there's a big difference. And I think that, just because you're smart, we're all smart. And one thing that I've learned, my hardest lesson as an entrepreneur, and I was never arrogant, okay? And there's a difference between confident and arrogant. And there's a way to be confident, persistent, and humble. And that is the entrepreneur that I want to invest in. The lesson that I've learned the hardest as an entrepreneur is to know my audience. And I think that sometimes entrepreneurs who are very confident get the wrong people in their ear. And the wrong people in their ear are those people saying, walk the talk, like, fake it till you make it. And they take that and they put it on steroids. And fake it till you make it becomes, and half of the time, these people actually aren't arrogant at all. They just think that they're not going to get investment unless they act like they went somewhere and like they worked somewhere and they did something so that they're worthy because somebody else has told them that you have to kind of play a certain part or wear a hoodie in Silicon Valley and have a certain walk and a certain talk in order to get an investment dollar. And so those people I can actually pick apart in one meeting. I can break them down and realize, no, you're not actually a real arrogant, son of a gun. Somebody just told you to come in and act like this so that I think you're somebody, so that you give off this air. And there are ways to break down those people very easily and very quickly, and I think I'm really good at it. But you have to know your audience. And it was very difficult for me because my first business was in Monticello, Virginia, in Charlottesville. It was in a predominantly white area. I was a young black woman starting this business. I was coming from New York City. I was fast-paced. I used to call down to places. This is when people still used fax machines. And I'd say, can you fax me a confirmation? Thanks, bye. And they're like, excuse me, can you say your number again? I'm like, don't you have it on file? And I didn't mean to be, anyway, I didn't mean to be arrogant or pushy. I was just boom, 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 go, 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 go. And finally, someone said to me when I was selling my first company, and I had done very well, and I wasn't like that with everybody, and they said, know your audience, you'll get what you want. And I talk about this all the time. And then when I came into technology, I started getting all of these emails from people, first from women, then from men with smiley faces and all these sorts of things. And I originally thought, gosh, that's so inappropriate. And I still think it's inappropriate sometimes. I don't think it's the most professional thing to do. But I realized that that is a way that people communicate now. I mean, now we have emojis. We didn't have emojis then. But that was a way that people communicate. And so there was a woman that worked for me, and she actually was arrogant, but there was still a way to get what I wanted out of her. And she would write me, and always be very curt, but it would be like smiley face. And so I would write her back like, let's kind of assert who's in control here. And then one of my partners said, why don't you realize who your audience is and you'll get what you want? And so I started writing her back with smiley faces. So instead of me saying, I need it back by 3 o'clock, got it, or I need it back by 3 p.m., end of story, I would write, you think I can get it back by 3? ? Smiley face. Lo and behold, I got the darn thing back by 3 o'clock. So I think there's, I'm saying all this to say that you have to know your audience as an entrepreneur. As an investor, your investors also have to know their audience, and they have to be a good judge and read of character. But there is a huge difference between that arrogance factor and that confidence factor. Those two are more closely correlated, in my opinion, than persistence and arrogance.
I had a question for you guys.
Yes, actually, we're all mature adults, hopefully, trying to make business. So whether the investor or the investee, so basically, if you meet someone, you want to make sure that you try to give them time frames, or what is it that you're intended to do with them over. That's from the first. I think maybe you can take a few first meetings and try to get to as much detail to see if the personalities are going to work together, if the idea is worth looking into, if the person, and stuff like this. And that's as quick as maybe a couple of weeks or 10 days. You put these meetings, and then you try to tell them, well, I'm super excited to work with you. I have concerns. I'd like to validate this and that, and this would get you into a 10-week or maybe 6 months window, so that they know that they're not surprised. You have not taken them for a ride that I'm investing, and then you have not pulled out at the final minute. But at the same time, you try to validate for yourself and save my thing, because you're not interested as well to do stuff. And many times, at least for me, when I've met with entrepreneurs who are into science, they would coach us and tell us more about what they have, and we have to be humble as well to listen, and maybe to meet with some few people who can validate me. I'm not a scientist myself, so if someone tells me rocket science or shows me some algorithms that he has invented, and it happened to me last week. So today this week I'm scheduling 2 meetings with people who hopefully would know something about it and would. So I said, I stuff like this. I said I don't understand it. I need to talk to a couple of people, and I would share as you feel comforted. Send me the stuff. So I think it's about expectation, how you structure this, so that no one is really disappointed. And the shorter the time, the better. And with every encounter, some people will be more mature than others. One time you would be more mature as investor. Another time they would be more mature to lead you into something that you don't know much. So that's it.
Loay, Tarek, and Lauren, I want to thank you very much. I personally enjoyed it, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as much. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.